Folks, welcome back. So like I said in the last video, got a few things in store here for our own van. I'll go through what that is now, but yeah, some upgrades and yeah, hopefully we'll improve things a little more. Now, so what we have in store is all this stuff. Well, most of this stuff. We have a full set of Bilstein gas shocks. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the shocks that are in it, but I feel like the front ones just aren't great. And yeah, I'd like to see the difference. I'd upgrade to a gas shock in the rear as well. These aren't high performance ones or anything, they're just a Bilstein gas shocks. Now, I also got shift rod oil seals for the sat box. I'm leaking oil through the shift rod. The shift rod is quite a bit rough, so I got two just in case. Yeah, so they were $2.50 each, but the postage, funny that they're Mazda ones, but they're right anyway. $2.50 each, but the postage was 30 quid. So while I was at it, they also sold handbrake cables, so I wanted to replace those anyway, so I got those, and I also got something else, I can't remember. Oh, a new spring set for the rear shoes. I have a set of heavy duty rear springs. That's more of an experiment, see what they do for us. New drums and new shoes for the back brakes, and I'm also going to change, although I haven't got it yet, is the rod that goes from the handbrake to the brake cables, because that failed on us once and I patched it up so we'd have a handbrake, but you know, we have in fact pulled up on essentially a cliff top, pulled up the handbrake and gone to sleep. So you know, you want to be sure that that thing doesn't let go in the middle of the night, or ever for that matter. It is actually quite a pain without a handbrake. So yeah, that's what we've got. The shocks are the main thing that's going to be something different here, and those heavy duty springs. I meant to measure the ride height. I had done it a couple of weeks ago, but I meant to measure the ride height before I backed it in out on a nice flat ground. But I'll take a measurement in here and we'll see what kind of difference it makes. There should be a little tiny bit of lift off a gas shock. Now, I run a fairly big back tyre on this. That was done mainly to give me some gearbox clearance. They are, what are they? They are a 15-inch rim with a 215/70 R15C. So it's quite a big tyre. I actually measured that against my car tyres, and 18-inch alloys. It's the same rolling diameter. So I'm actually hoping to upgrade these soon to a set of 17-inch staggered EBS rims or something on here. I want something nice on it. I just haven't decided what yet. Basically, they've also got to be cheap because I just hate spending tons of money on rims. But anyway, I would like some banded steelies, but I can't find anyone in Ireland who actually makes them. And yeah, you know, a set of banded Vito rims or something would be nice, but a bit awkward to get hold of. So yeah, we'll see. This van doesn't really do that squatting in the back thing like a lot of them do. I'll show you on the other van outside, but maybe that's just to do with the tall tyre. And either way, I don't mind a bit of extra ride height in the back. You know, we carry a full water tank and often have the van fairly loaded up. So we'll see how it goes. Right, so just pulled off the rear drum. Now the rear brakes actually seemed fine, but these drums were pretty rusty when I done up the van, but you know, we got another one out of them. But somewhere in the middle of Spain I noticed this rust flaking away from this, and I started to panic a little bit in case this plate, which is actually much thinner than the actual drum, that this was actually rusting all the way through. Now, I had a good dig around with it there and found that it was okay, but still, it was obviously flexing enough for that rust to start chipping away. So that would get quite thin, which is something I hadn't really thought about when you know, I held on to it. But they were also a bit oval at the start, but they actually smoothened out quite a lot and seemed fine. So we've got a new drum. The heavy duty spring. Now, like I said, this is a bit of an experiment. I don't have such an issue with this van sagging down or anything, but I'm going to see what these are like. They're actually reasonable enough off, I think, VW Heritage or someone. And then we'll upgrade to the Bilstein rear shock. So that's all the brakes done. I didn't do the wheel cylinder because they're only about a year old. The back plate on this one, it's not super, but it's fine. I'll change that at a later date. Yeah, it doesn't need doing yet. So yeah, new spring kit, new shoes. Gave all the self-adjusters a good clean up. That's the one thing with those, I think, is always strip them down, give them a good rub with the electric bar brush, and just make sure they're all clean and that spins nice and freely, and it'll just help it a lot. So yeah, I'm going to wind that out a bit and stick the back drum on there. New handbrake cable is fitted. I'll do both drums and come back and go underneath and do the handbrake after. Okay, well, my day took an unexpected turn for the worst. Should have known. My spring hanger was, well, that's been cut back now, but it was completely rotted out. I had done some patchwork before on that, but obviously it's deteriorated since. And the bump stop bracket was actually breaking loose. So here's the plan now. I've made a heavy steel plate. That's going to fit in. I'm going to get some load on that now and get that welded up in there. Bit of a nuisance, but rather here than side of the road somewhere, I guess. Right. Right, so there's my new plate welded in. Just got it all cleaned up. I'm going to give it a paint now. Other problem I have is, because I have the Audi box, the angle of my drive shaft is the limiting factor in how far the swing arm is able to drop with that shock out. So I can't get my spring in unless I disconnect the drive shaft, which I don't want to do. And my spring compressors don't fit in there, so I'm going to have to make a spring compressor as well to get the spring back in. But first of all, paint this up and go have some lunch. Well, that was far more work than it needed to be, but it's in anyway. Now I'm going to gain a minimum of 6mm lift here because of the thickness of that plate, plus whatever that spring was after sinking into that. So it's going to be up a bit regardless. I think it may have been a heavy duty spring in the first place, so I wouldn't expect much height in that, only that perhaps that spring was old and sagging. So yeah, drums done. Made that bit of a spring compressor to help get that in there. Wasn't ideal, but it did help because it'd be quite a struggle otherwise. So please God, don't let the other side be that bad. I did make an extra plate, so I wouldn't have to go back doing that again, but I've run out of MIG wire as well, so yeah, fun.
No, we found the true yellow, which is actually on campus back.
Okay, everyone. So this was all made months ago. As you can tell by the way I'm dressed, it's now the middle of winter again, and we're stuck in all sorts of different stuff. But quite happy with the results from the Bilstein shocks. Now it turns out the bushing was completely knackered on the passenger side one, the old shock, Lifting the rear springs has kind of sorted out a bit of a drive shaft knock I had. That was to do with centering of the engine and stuff when the conversion was done, and when the van's fully loaded, I don't have quite enough side-to-side movement on my passenger side drive shaft. I've been looking at getting a slightly shorter shaft because the alternative is to thin the spacer, which is already kind of at its minimum, or move the engine 5 millimeters. I have 15 mm movement left to right on one side and only 5 mm on the other side, so I could balance it out. But the Bilstein shocks, the van feels much more, much firmer. Doesn't feel like it's kind of bottoming out the way it was before. Seems to carry the weight better as well. I did get some Mercedes alloys for it. I put them on with the car tires as kind of a test run because the tires were old anyway, and I needed to. They need to be changed to van tires. Really, I wanted to see were they any quieter, but they're actually much noisier than the van tires that were on it. And to add to that, it made the steering really heavy. The offset does move them out slightly, but considering how much, I was very surprised at just how heavy it made the steering. So I put the other wheels back on and decided I'd run those tires until they're pretty much gone. There's probably still about a year in them, but if anything happens to them or once they're worn out, I might put the new tires on the new wheels and see what that's like. But they're 16s instead of 15s, so I can't just transfer them. But they're very light wheel as well. Mercedes SLK, I think. They're right fitment. You just have to bore the stud holes out to 12 mm, I think. Other than that, what did I do in that few jobs? I guess a bit of what I gained was just from plating those spring mounts, which was a bit of a nuisance, but they're good and solid now anyway. So that's that. I have other things in line for the van before bigger trips next year, but we'll look into that when it comes to it. In the meantime, I was going to give you a quick run around of what's happening here now. I'm not actually filming anything at the moment, but I've got some things in the pipeline. I'm just trying to get a lot of things in place before I tear into some pretty big projects I've got going. I'll give you a quick look at this one though. It's a big one. So the reason I didn't film any of this really is because it's kind of the same old thing again. This van was in a poor state. Now, one of the biggest things I've had to do is add so much paint on it of unknown quantity that I had to remove it all, which has been a bit of an undertaking, but I think the results will be worth it. Ended up removing most of it with actually quite stiff wire brush on the grinder, which takes it down and leaves this kind of an etch primer that's in it, and then it sands up lovely and smooth. So I'll be sanding the whole thing before I get to that. Some of it just back to the original color, where I used paint stripper on the sides. It had quite a few coats of paint on it though. But again, we did rear corners. This one actually had to have welding done halfway up here. We put a new section of an arch into this side and that lower piece. Full side here, it's a factory window van, so I had to make new reveals for both sides. Little bit of body work to go on there. Steps had to be done on both sides, sections of the floor. One of the bigger things in this was the whole front. Had a bit of crash damage on the front, and as well as that, all this in here had rotten away and the hood over it because they were damaged, and each side of it. So I had to cut all that out of a scrap van and weld it all into here before all this went in. So all that took a bit of time. The roof's not bad, and actually we did do the sill on the other side as well, and that back piece of floor. But other than that, in here, all the main floor and stuff was good, and no rotted ingress in along either side there or anything like that. Did get a full floor section. Cut that all out of another van as well, rather than buying the panel. I had it, so. And the front arches are all good. there's nothing left to hide on this anyway. Yeah, I've had to get in all around here with a nitromorse first, and then in with the wire brush. I did try these bristle brushes. That was probably 5 minutes in that first one, and they looked like cup wire brushes to start with, but they did tear paint off. They were actually more damaging to the metal than the wire cut brush. Now I use these ones with the twist, and actually I'm surprised they're as delicate as they are on the metal. I mean, they just take it down to that primer. I mean, if you really lean in, it'll cut through it, but you don't want to do that. So yeah, so that seemed to be the way to go. I did have some other types of things. This thing, I don't know where to get these though. That removes paint and brings it back down to bare metal. Probably generates a little bit more heat than the wire brush. But it does do a nice job if you had a small area to do. What are they called even? I don't know where this one came from. It was given to me. But yeah, very delicate on the metalwork. So if you had loads of those, that would be good. Boot lid was completely unsalvageable, so we've actually did put in a whole base panel in this one. So it's welded right across the middle here, and the back had to be done as well. But it was much more salvageable than the one that came off it. The sliding door track is rotten away as well, so I have to replace that. Yeah, I'm just put a new base in the passenger door here, or driver door. I stripped all those yesterday like that. You know, all that paint was everywhere, so all had to be done. Anyway, don't worry about that one. You might just see a picture of that on Instagram when it's all done. That's about it though. So thank you very much for watching that. I will give an update in the new year sometime about what the hell else is going on. Yeah, we'll go through all that then. I'll have a few things organized by then, hopefully, and it might be worth talking about. But in the meantime, I've got to keep on with this. So thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, plenty to come. So thank you very much. See you next time.